And we are live. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. We are here starting today one more class of the Spiritist Review. I want to welcome everyone who has joined us at this time, and also everyone who's following us on the YouTube channel of the Spiritist Federation of Florida. I also would like to say hello to everyone who will eventually, at some point, please, I'm going to ask every single participant to mute their microphone. I am hearing voices. There you go. Thank you so much. So let's keep going. So just welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here today. Again, in name of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, welcoming every one of you, whether you're in Zoom, whether you were joining us on YouTube right now, or whether you're joining us at a later time. We're very happy to have the study available, and hope to have more people joining us, participating, and making a contribution. We are going to get started, as always, with our initial prayer. So we're going to take a moment to do a prayer, asking each one of you to join me in thoughts by saying, "Dear Father, thank you so much for this new opportunity to study, to learn, and to grow. It is our intent to understand each day more and more, not only with our mind, but also with our heart, the principles of Spiritism, but also the good news that our Lord and Master Jesus came to teach us 2,000 years ago. Help us then in this initiative by giving us the inspiration, guiding our thoughts, and helping us in understanding the lessons. Again, we are thankful for the presence of each one of you, our mentors and benefactors, and for everything. Thank you so much, and so be it." All right, dear friends. So again, good evening to everyone. It's evening where you are. At this moment here in Miami, it's getting dark out there. I'm going to start by opening the presentation that we were reviewing. We almost finished. There were only 2 slides missing. If you're joining this course for the first time today, I have missed our initial lessons. You have missed basically 2 lessons where we have used the presentation of the Spiritist Federation of Brazil, as well as some other texts, just to give us an idea of what the Spiritist Review is about, what is the content, also the process that Kardec went through in order to put the Spiritist Review together. If you were joining us today, also I would like for you to know that we are going to talk about some pieces of the Spiritist Review, but also we're going to take this opportunity to actually dive into the work of Allan Kardec and the codification. So it's a study group where we're studying together, but also learning to study by kind of seeking the meaning of the words and some important concepts that we find in the text, and being able to locate in the works of codification the ideas that support and that explain that term. So this is what we're doing right here. And today we're going to finish then. I'm going to share my screen right now. Opening here. Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna put these on a presentation mode for us. So here we go. And this is not where we were, so I'm gonna move us up here. All right, so this is the slide that we stop again. It is the very final comments that we find in the introduction that we have in the Portuguese edition of the Spiritist Federation of Brazil, but it is a very interesting text, and so we have shared here in English for you. So this was written by Nestor Mazzotti, who was at the time the president of the Brazilian Federation. He said, although the task was heavy for him, Allan Kardec managed and directed Spiritist Review until March 31st, 1869, whilst also being responsible for the April issue of the same year, which was already drafted before his discarnation. He worked alone, unhindered by any outside will. In its first 12 years, the Spiritist Review was the complement of the doctrine work started by Allan Kardec and also its main pillar. So this is, we did talk about this last week, as far as like the last issue of the Spiritist Review being launched after Allan Kardec's passing. So we mentioned that he worked until the very last minute because he had a full magazine ready to go, you know, and so the very last one was came on in April of 1869. And here he's going to end by saying, pardon. In addition to the codifier, the review had the collaboration of hundreds of participants, incarnate and discarnate, from France and other nations, among which scientists, literati, philosophers, religious, and common people, each one helping to launch in their respective sphere of action the foundations on which the grandiose edifice of Spiritism would rise. So Kardec, along the way, he received many letters, many contributions from different people. Sometimes there were questions, sometimes there were communications received elsewhere, information received elsewhere, and his work was, again, to read everything, to analyze everything, and to add to the Spiritist Review with his comments and his thoughts as he developed the work. So this was the presentation of last week. We had those two slides missing. We are going to move on to our next presentation, but before doing so, so we had as a homework for folks to read the introduction of the Spiritist Review. So when we open the Spiritist Review, the very first volume of January, it starts with the introduction. And so that's what was assigned for today's reading. And also we had a supplemental reading from what is Spiritism, the practical usefulness of manifestations. So it's good that we have both of these books in our hands if we have them with us. Very well. Give me 1 second so we can go to the next one. Just 1 minute. I'm going to open here. Class 2. Okay. All right. So this is now our class for today. Before I start, does anyone would like to share anything from last week? Any thoughts? Any questions? If you have a question, Andrea will answer gladly. So go ahead and shoot it. Okay, I don't see any hands. So let's move on. All right, so we are going to get to the January review. Number one, this is the introduction. Okay, so like before, I took some passages that I thought were, well, everything is important, but that caught my attention. And in the beginning of the introduction, it says that the speed of propagation of the strange spiritist manifestations all over the world is a demonstration of the interest they attract. They soon drew the attention of serious investigators who, since the beginning, perceived the inevitable influence they would have on the moral condition of society. So I'm going to take a little pause here to talk a little bit about this sentence, and I underline here the moral condition of society. So is there any volunteer who read the text from What is Spiritism that would like to attempt to make a correlation between this sentence from the Spiritist Review, talking about this inevitable influence that the phenomena would have on the moral conditions of society, and the text from What Spiritism that says the practical usefulness of manifestations? Any courageous soul would like to give it a shot? Okay, not a problem. I will take the lead. So here we go. So if you read, please open, if you have it, the book in your hands. And it's not a really long text, and it starts by talking about Allan Kardec is having a dialogue with a visitor. And in this dialogue, the visitor is going to ask Kardec about the practical usefulness of Spiritism. And Kardec is going to start by saying that if you consider that the practical usefulness to mean living well, making fortunes, knowing the future, discovering hidden treasures, receiving inheritance, in other words, making some profit out of the Spiritist manifestations of the Spiritist teachings, he's going to say Spiritism serves no one. In other words, there is no usefulness in knowing all these things or in the manifestation. That's not what they are meant to do. They are not meant to be a source of income. They are not meant to bring money. They're not meant to use to figure out the way to make money on the stock market. It does even talk about that. So he makes it very clear that this is not what Spiritism or the phenomena is about. So then he's going to say that, the usefulness of the manifestations is it helps to, it serves to lift a corner of the veil, and therefore it aids on the development of our intelligence and enlarges our range of ideas by enabling us to penetrate the laws of nature more deeply. Remember that we talk about that, how Spiritism helps us to, we're gonna understand the phenomena. We're going to understand laws that govern those phenomena. There are laws of nature, and that Spiritism is able to explain. So when we have the phenomena and we start to understand that there is a spiritual life, that we are immortal beings, and the relationship between the spiritual life and our present life, we start to understand life better. we start to our sense of what life is expands significantly. So he's going to say, he teaches us the influence that the invisible world exerts on the visible world and the connections between the two. And then finally, he's going to say, but it's not only this. It's not that we have a better understanding of life, of the loss. It does more to us. Has another positive usefulness, which is the moral influence it exerts by necessity. And it's going to say, Spiritism is the obvious proof of the soul's existence, of its individuality after death, its immortality, and its future destiny. Thus, it is the destruction of materialism, not by means of reasoning, but by the facts. So this is one example on how we can use these teachings and the phenomena to understand life and to draw from this understanding what Kardec is going to over and over, as well as the Spirit highlight, as the main goal of Spiritism, which is, it's more, I wouldn't say goal, the main consequence of Spiritism, which is its moral influence in our lives. It changes our paradigm of living. It changes our values. Once we know to be immortal beings, life has a completely different meaning. And so again, it changes the way that we live. It changes the way that we relate to ourselves and to others. I'm going to pass it on to Andrea.
Yeah, it's really quick, Susanna, because I remember we had and I'm sorry about the background noise. We had a visitor here in Florida a while back, and there seemed to be a big concern about the phenomena. And you gave a lesson that stuck with me forever, because when we talk about the phenomena and why we don't have the Spiritist phenomena as it used to, even mediums like Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco, who started doing the physical manifestation type of utilizing their mediumship, and both Joanna and Emmanuel, the spirit guides, told them that their work was not for that type of phenomena. And when you were discussing this with that visitor who came to Florida, you said something that stuck with me. You said that right now we are waiting for the biggest phenomena that we haven't seen yet, which is the moral transformation of the being. And that stuck with me so much, because that's exactly it. It would be a phenomenon to see this type of moral transformation. And that's why Spiritism, in my view, and all that Allan Kardec is bringing Spiritist Review, serves as an example of exactly that you said to that visitor from Brazil. So I just wanted to say that and share it, because I thought it was really special, and it answers a lot as to why we don't have the phenomena more and more as it used to be in the time of Allan Kardec. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna pass it to John. I just want to say very quickly that, you know, I am bringing some readings, some samples, but it's not like that this is the only place where we can find it. So when we were discussing this in the Portuguese group last week, and believe me, this has been a tremendous exercise for my mind, because I'm saying things and I don't know if I already said them or not, because the Portuguese and the English are like, it's just like I'm almost unable to differentiate. Have I done this? Have I said this? You know, but in talking about this last week, you know, it was brought up that heaven and hell is, and the testimonial of the spirits in their different situation after death is a great example of the you know, that helps us through the phenomena to understand the moral consequences of how we live and how the values that we embrace and the type of life that we have is going to affect and directly correlate to what we will experience in the spiritual realm. So we're gonna die the way that we have lived. If the principles that we embrace in life in the body will set our reality in our lives outside of the body, because it will be just a continuity of the same. So if we, a lot of times we think about, oh my God, what's going to be after I die? Well, it's going to be what you experience today. What is it that you experience today? Are you someone who is able to get to the end of the day and say to yourself, it wasn't a perfect day, but I did try. I did try to live, in accordance to the principles that I embrace. I did try to be kinder. I tried to care for others. I tried to be giving, to be forgiving. And therefore, I am in peace with my own humanity, with my growth, So if that is the state that you are today, that is the state that you're going to be once you wake up and realize that you're no longer inside your physical body. So, John, go. Take it from here.
I'm a little conflicted when we get into morals, heart, and stuff like that. For example, one, it was pointed out, and I can't even keep track of all the books that we're reading, where it was, but it said that intellectual development precedes moral development. And yet in the Kardec biography, it said, unfortunately for Kardec, he came from the heart first, I assume when he was a teacher, and that wasn't the direction to go. Kind of indicated it was a wrong direction to come from his heart first. So that's a little conflicting to me. It seems it's perpetrated that intellectual development will precede moral development. But aside from that, the idea that the days of phenomenon are past, we discussed this before. It seems at Kardec's time, and the good thing is everything changes. Certainly from 1858 to 2023, things have changed. Yet it seems to me, and I may be wrong, that when you talk about communications with the other side, when you talk about reincarnation, the bulk of people say, oh my God, that's crazy. I mean, it's just insane, that type of thing. And the phenomenon opened the door to many people for the possibility that this exists. I'm not saying that phenomenon should be the direction, but it's interesting that the mediums that we depend on say they were told directly, stop with the phenomenon and concentrate on the morals. But then again, I'm conflicted because the literature indicates, we're not interested in being evangelistic and get everyone to get on our bandwagon that leads us into peace and harmony. As time will go on and people are drawn to what their heart feels is true, then they will go to what they feel is in their best interest. So those are the conflicting things that seem to be a common thread in this even beginnings that we're talking about. I don't know if I asked the question, but it bothered me a little bit that they said Kardec came from the heart first. And I certainly wouldn't have criticized him coming from his heart first as a direction.
I think we have to put those comments into perspective. First of all, the definition that intelligence precedes the moral development is found in the Spirit's book. And you can only have ethics and morality. First of all, if you have consciousness that you are. So we have to have reached that state of human beings with consciousness, with awareness. Then the development of intelligence, if you think about the man in the primitive times, it was a man that the intelligence was still very primitive. So the men in the caves had no idea, they had no sense of good and evil. They couldn't distinguish because the development of the intelligence, the understanding of the self was not there. It is not until the moment that intelligence developed enough that mankind was able to have a greater consciousness of the self and start to understand the difference between right and wrong. This consciousness continues to develop within us. This is also why in the Spirit's book, we're going to learn that the laws, God's laws, are in our consciousness, but not we are not able to fully understand. The more we develop our intelligence, the more we understand the laws, the more we understand the universe, as a species, better we are able to understand what is truly good and what is truly evil. Right now, for example, our understanding of good has evolved from a time where we were in the caves. And at that time, to be good was to survive and to protect the ones that were the closest to you, even if that meant to kill. Today, we don't kill anymore legally and peacefully the way we did. We have an understanding, evolution of intelligence that tells us that this is not okay. But we still do a lot of things that are not okay. And we're still comfortable with those things because we have yet to understand the loss and the consequence of the loss at a larger range. Joana de Angelis talks that we're evolving from human consciousness to a cosmic consciousness, which means a consciousness of the whole. So in that sense, we need to have an understanding in order to develop the moral values. Now, that's one thing. You cannot develop morality and values if you don't even have awareness of self. The other thing is, in regards to Kardec, I would have to review exactly the passage and the context that passage is in, which I will. I don't want to speak. I have a vague memory of this, and I don't like to speak on base of anything that's vague in my mind. But, you know, I'll definitely get back to it. And the other thing that you talk about was the phenomena. Okay, so these mediums that Andrea referred to, they had a specific mission. Their mission was not a mission that was related to the phenomena. They had abilities and they had a responsibility to push the Spiritist philosophy past the phenomena, beyond the phenomena. There are others whose mission is to more related to the phenomena per se, but they had a mission that was related to the delivery and the continuity of the philosophy. So if they got caught and distracted with the phenomena, they would have missed a very important piece that was way more important than just the phenomena, because we have had enough phenomena. And as we have discussed, there are many, many people who see the phenomena, who say, hey, oh, there is life after that, and go on living exactly the same way. There are many people who see the phenomena and say, I'm not sure about this. And they continue to be just as suspicious, no matter how pure that phenomena is, because they're not ready internally to embrace the reality of life. So right now, as we have discussed before, I think we still have mediumship. Mediumship has its place, has its mission. No one is against this idea, but what needs to happen, and what is in the conclusion of the Spirit's book that we also addressed last week, is that we cannot stop on the phenomena. We will not evolve into a better world if all we are doing is attending to the phenomena. We need to take the phenomena and develop the philosophy, dive into the philosophy, and let this philosophy transform our life. That is the whole purpose. And that's what we are talking about. So it's not to dismiss the phenomena. It's not to minimize its importance. It's not to say that there isn't a place for it, that there isn't benefits from it, but it's to say, at this point, at least for us here, what can we learn from it, and how can these become this powerful tool of transformation, right? So I hope that with that, I at least address somewhat, your point of view. And I'll get back to Kardec. Cynthia.
Yes, hi. I know you said, Susanna, that you're going to look into the very text that John mentioned, right, about the conflict on Kardec following the heart first, and all of that he mentioned. I also have a thought, and I think we slightly touched on that last class. I also think that if we see just the last incarnation of Kardec, at least the one that we're talking about, right? He is Kardec. Maybe, and I don't know that text exactly, but maybe that conflict could be. But if we go beyond that, Kardec was already an illuminated and intellectual spirit, right? So it's not that he came and he was touched just by his heart and his feelings of developing all the work that he did, but he already brought that in previous incarnations of Kardec that we know. He already had a mission. He was his intellect was already very developed. So that was one, and per se, he seems to be also an intelligent individual by having done everything that he did. He could have been inspired by the spirits as he was to compile all of the basic works, but one had to be intelligent enough to have that capacity of summarizing and putting everything in a very orderly manner that he did. But in short, I just wanted to say that in my mind, we should look at him not from just this incarnation, but previous ones that he had, where he was already a very developed individual, a human being, a spirit, right? Spirit, intellectually speaking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, a mission like his would not be given to a spirit that was not, intellectually prepared to deliver it. I don't know. I sometimes, I'm like right now, I'm doing a little bit of work where I'm compiling some works of Joanna from many different books, and by the end of a few hours, I'm like mentally exhausted. So I just like we cannot imagine. It's like he obviously had an intelligence that was, above, the average of our humanity. And in order to achieve that, since there is no privileges in the creation, and each one of us is given absolutely the same opportunities, he has to have developed that in the course of his previous incarnations, which does not mean that he was flawless. And that, you know, he didn't have impulses, that he didn't maybe did things driven by his heart and reassess his own work. I'm sure that he was constantly checking himself and, you know, like any person prone to make mistakes here and there. We have seen communication from his guide who says, there is an error right there, read again, review it, and you will find the mistake. So, so, you know, but Cynthia, you're absolutely right.
So
Okay.
that thought could kind of, you know, help a little bit in not maybe dissolving in my mind, you know, that maybe that conflict, that apparent conflict, maybe that John mentioned, right? And what came first, intellect or?
Yeah, we'll definitely review. I don't even know if there is a conflict or not. Maybe there isn't. So I don't want to speak as such. If, you know, maybe there isn't. So let's look at it and get back to it. All right, let's move forward.
Susanna, just one thing, if I may, very quickly, because you're talking about the usefulness, right, of the communications, and you wanted to do the correlation, but the introduction also, it does touch on that too itself, right? When it just says that this review is the blank that we propose to fill out with the publication of this review, aiming at providing communication and blah, blah, blah. Those who understand the Spiritist doctrine from its true moral point of view, practice of good, and evangelical charity towards everyone.
Yes, good point.
Right?
Good point. Yes, so it reiterates in the text a little further, you know, that is the idea. Very well. All right, so moving forward. Okay, so in the introduction, you will say the new ideas which stem from them become more popular daily, and nothing can stop their progress. Okay, so nothing can stop the progress of the ideas. Why? Why is that? Who wants to answer? The answer is right there in the beginning of the introduction. Why is it that we cannot stop the progress of the ideas?
I don't want to be talking and not letting others talk.
Yeah, let me give you a second. Let's see if anybody else would like to contribute. Okay, so I'm gonna get back to Cynthia. Cynthia, let's go. What is your understanding?
Well, I'm going to go with what we read here, right? And talking about the phenomenon and everything, and it says there, if it's muffled, if it's covered in one place, it's going to surface in another. This is something that will not stop, right? And even within a family, I think it goes on to mention, even in a family, you may have someone that will develop or express or show some of the symptoms of the phenomena. Basically, right? Yeah,
it says right here, right? If muffled in one point, they appear in 100 others. So you can say, you can tie someone and say, okay, you are not going to bring any manifestations anymore, but the spirits are everywhere, mediums are everywhere. And so it's something that, it's a very important concept that we have to, for us to think about. We don't have control over the spirits. Okay, we don't. So the thing with the phenomena is that it may happen, it may not happen. We may think it's going to happen here, but who can guarantee? Because who is driving the phenomena? It's not the medium, it's the spirits. And so that is something. And with that, we can also always remember that it's also there's all kinds of spirits, right? And so we have to be very careful because we never know what kind of spirit is showing up. So, but this is a different idea. But Cynthia is right. I thought I saw another. Oh, Yvonne.
Further down in the text, it also says that when a force is part of nature, it can only be temporarily stopped, but never eliminated.
Yes, absolutely. So it's part of nature. So you can deter. You can, again, you can try to stop here for a little bit, but you will definitely come back. So very good. So that were the answers. And then you will make a little analogy with magnetism as, just like the phenomena, it's also part of nature. So you cannot deter, magnetism suffer the same type of attack and, the Spiritism did in its foundations, but no one could stop it from happening because it's a natural force. It is in nature. So I just put here that, magnetism was studied and developed by Mesmer, 1734 to 1815. So just before Kardec's time. And it's this force, human force that was used as a technique by magnetizers in the treatment of patients and in some somnambulistic processes. So just as a curiosity here for us, since you mentioned in the text. Okay, so we're gonna move on. So here it says, what matters is that the force revealed in the phenomena of manifestations, whatever its cause may be, is part of nature, and it's necessary to be observed and studied. So when I read this sentence, where my mind went is, oh boy, if you're saying that it's necessary to be observed and studied, I should know where to go if I need to study, the phenomena and the laws that govern the phenomena. So the natural question in the mind of the reader should be, okay, where and how can this phenomena and natural law be studied? So the answer is, well, the phenomena can be studied in the Medium's book in the second part that talks about Spiritist manifestation, or you can go into Genesis chapter 15 that talks about the fluids and the laws. The laws, if we look into item 32 of, again, what is Spiritism, and this is part of our next reading, but I have here this paragraph. One can see by these few explanations that there is nothing supernatural or extraordinary about Spiritist manifestations. They are phenomena induced according to the law that governs the exchange between the visible and invisible world, a law as natural as the law of electricity, gravity, etc. Spiritism is the science that enables us to know about this law, just as mechanics enable us to know about the law of motion and optics, the law of light. Being part of nature, spirit manifestations have been produced in all ages. Once understood, the law governing them explains a series of problems that used to be considered insolvable. It is the key to a multitude of phenomena exploited and amplified by superstition. So again, this is what is Spiritism, and this message is called Communication with the Invisible World, number 32. So it is in Spiritism, in the codification, that we are going to find, again, the study of the laws. We're going to learn about, for example, universe, cosmic principle, material principle, intelligent principle. We're going to learn how the spirits can cross a door, can penetrate material things, how they communicate with us, how the connection is done. So by studying Spiritism, by studying the spirit, its properties, the perispirit, the laws, the communication, the phenomena, we are going to learn more and more, not only about the phenomena, but about the laws that drive the phenomena. And we'll be doing a lot of that, especially after the introduction. Our first class is going to dive right into the phenomena and how it happens and all that. Okay, now we're going to take a little break here to take a test. We're going to test your knowledge on the phenomena. You don't need to answer. I want you just to read. And all you need to do is in your mind, tell yourself if I think 4 sentences that I have, if they are true or if they are false. And here they are. True or false? It is with the help of its perispirit that the spirit acts upon its physical body. It is with the same fluid that it continues to manifest itself by acting upon inert matter. Is that true or false? What do you guys think? Just keeping your thoughts. The perispirit is ethereal matter. Is that true or false? Apparitions happen when the spirit undergoes a sort of molecular modification that renders it visible and even tangible. Is that true or false? Turning table phenomena is produced by means of the fluid that penetrates it, endowing the table with momentary light. Is that true or false? The answers for these questions are in What is Spiritism? Communications with the Invisible World, items 22 to 33. And this is part of the reading for next week. So we'll get back to this. This is just to kind of make you curious about the topic, and you can check with yourself where you are in the understanding of the phenomenon. Very well. So moving on. Okay. So beyond the phenomena, today it is a science which uncovers a whole world and exposes the eternal truth that were already stands within our own spirit. It is a sublime doctrine that shows the path of duty to mankind and uncovers the widest field never presented to the observation of the philosopher. Had we stayed inside the narrow limits of an indoctrinal view, our work would be incomplete and sterile, as the interest would have soon passed. So when I read this particular passage, again, Spiritism is a sublime doctrine that shows the path of duty. So my mind went, boy, what is the path of duty? What does that mean? Because if it says here that this is what Spiritism used to do to show the path of duty, right? You said before, to lead to moral transformation, right? So where can I find information about duty? And that is precisely here. So I'm going to give to you guys, test your knowledge. Where can we find in the words of codification, the study or a passage on duty? Which book and which chapter? Does anyone know? This is just to break it down a little bit and get you guys thinking. Duty, where would that be? In which book? Let's start. Which book? I think David knows.
No, you have to.
David. You know? Which book? You mute.
You are on mute, my friend.
I know I'm on mute. I'm trying to get some more time, but I know it must be in the gospel somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe chapter 16, you cannot serve both God. No, I don't think so.
Gospel is the right answer.
Yeah.
And then what chapter would be? I want to say hi to my friend Brian. It's so nice to see you, Brian, here with us.
Hi, Susanna. Well, I goofed. I said it's library, so but I was thinking, maybe, I guess it could be yeah, it is in the gospel. Now I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's in chapter 17, be perfect.
that's correct.
Yes,
Spiritist
exactly.
teaching on duties.
Yes,
Yeah.
tormento bem.
All right, so let's look here the answer. So yep, so we're right. The gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 17, be perfect. And look at what it says there. I mean, it says a lot. It's actually a small paragraph. I mean, it's not a few paragraphs, but not very lengthy, but very heavy duty, because it starts by saying, in the order of sentiments, duty is very difficult to fulfill. Does anyone know why duty is very difficult to fulfill? I love this passage. You guys have to know it and have to study it. It's a very interesting one. Why is it that duty is so difficult to fulfill? Any ideas?
The duty really never ends.
It never ends, okay? It's true. But what else? What is the greatest obstacle to the fulfillment of our duty?
Ourself.
I think
Ourselves.
I think Mary had her hand up. I'm not sure if she meant
Oh,
to
sorry,
bring it
Mary.
down.
I have my crew here
No,
to help
I
me.
wanted
Go
to
ahead.
say hello to Brian because we could go way back and I didn't realize he was.
Oh yeah,
Hi,
yeah,
Brian.
right.
Here we are
Yeah,
again.
okay.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you in a couple of weeks in Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach, wherever the Federation meeting is at.
We'll be there. So we are the greatest obstacle. So duty is very difficult to be fulfilled because humankind is driven by self-interest. And when you are focused on your personal interest, it's very difficult to fulfill your duty, because happiness and goodness always take into consideration the interest and the goodness of the majority. And so in order to fulfill our duty, we have to be focusing on others, which is still very much against our stage of evolution, recently leaving the stages of primarism, where we were driven by instinct and by survival. We still retain the fears, the defense mechanisms, and this idea that we must survive, and we do so by attending to our needs without understanding that we'll never be happy, we'll never be safe, and we'll never be in peace if everyone else around us has exactly the same that we have. And so that's why it's worth reading. It's inspiring. It's challenging. So it's not mandatory for the course, but it is a suggestion to add for the next 2 weeks the reading of this item in the Gospel according to Spiritism. Okay. So with that, we have here another sentence from this that says, duty provides the soul with the strength it needs for its development, because to fulfill our duties, to get it right and to find peace and to find yourself together and center, which is a very powerful feeling in a day where everybody and everyone seems to be falling apart around us. So here we go. Probably one of the last questions for today. I think this is gonna take a little while. So the question is, does Kardec in the introduction consider the Spiritism to be a sign? So who would like to contribute with this discussion here.
Susanna? Yeah,
Yes.
Kardec was very much aligned with observation, rationale. The contrary arguments why Spiritism is not a science is that it is not measurable. You can't, normal techniques of science are to measure. It can be reproducible. It can be maybe put into equations. And the Spiritism is not quite like that. But his main argument was that Spiritism is built on facts, on observations, and rational thinking.
Perfect, David. Thank you. So kind of in line with what David put here. So Kardec is going to say, Spiritism certainly would not have, without a doubt, and in any case, the characteristics of an exact science. So he talks about Spiritism not being an exact science. And so an exact science, when you were researching something, you have a question. You're questioning something and you create a hypothesis for that question. I think that this is what's going to happen. I think that this is going to be the truth. And then the primary thing with an exact science is that you're going to experiment. You're going to manipulate variables. And you are going, if you want to do a very robust scientific method, you are going to have a control group. And, there's all these different methods in which you can do an experiment. And then you're going to collect data from that experiment. And you're going to analyze the data and you're going to come to a conclusion. And then, like David said very well, it needs to be reproducible. So everything is measured, you have to catalog, you have to describe, so people can reproduce that same experiment, can be done over and over and over and over until it's proven to be true. So that's not what Kardec did, because again, he was not experimenting with the spirits. He was not manipulating the spirits as variables. He would not say, okay, I want a group of pure spirits to come here, and I want a group of, and I'm going to give you some tasks and to both groups and see how you guys perform. And this would be an experiment, but the spirits are not, available, and you cannot experiment with spirits like that. So what he did is he said that Spiritism is a philosophical science, and that was already enough. Every science must be based on facts, but those by themselves do not constitute the science which is born from the coordination and logic and inference of the facts. It is the set of laws which govern those facts. So what Kardec did is he observed already a fact that was there, the Spiritist manifestation, and then he had questions. He asked those questions. He took the answers and he coordinated and came to a logical conclusion about those answers. So this is the codification process, but it starts from a fact, and he had his questions. He asked the questions. Again, he gathered the material. He classified. He looked for similar answers, and then he put together this philosophy based on his observation of the phenomena. So that is the difference between what would be, an exact science and what he calls to be a philosophical science. So a lot of people will say Spiritism is not a science. When they say that, I have had many Americans to whom I introduced the Spiritism, and they said, you can't call that a science. And guess what? They're right. It's not. It's not exact science. It's not science like we do in our labs and what we call research science here. And he admits that, so he's going to call that a philosophical science. So that's one way in which we can make the distinction. And here, let me just look at the time. Yeah, okay. So he's going to say, it's going to elaborate a little bit on that by saying, at these meetings, I began my first series studies of Spiritism. It's still more by observation than revelation. As I had always done up to that point, I applied the experimental method to this new science. I never developed preconceived theories. I observe attentively, compare, and deduce the results. From the effect, I sought to go back to the causes, to deduction, and the logical chain of events, never accepting an explanation as valid until I could resolve all the aspects of the issue. This had been my procedure in previous endeavors ever since I was 25 or 26. First of all, I grasped the gravity of the exploration I was about to undertake. I perceive in those phenomena the key to the highly obscure and controversial issue of humankind's past and future, the solution to which I had been looking for my entire life. In other words, it was an entire revolution of ideas and beliefs. Consequently, I had to proceed with the greatest circumspection and not superficially, to be a positivist and not an idealistic, so not to go adrift with illusions. So this is a text that we find in Posthumus' work that we have translated. Again, this book is not yet available in English, but we brought to you this little passage, the writing of Kardec, that shows how seriously he took, and that, talks to us a little bit about his method, a method that he had taken to all his work in his life since a very young age, 25 and 26, and that he was very careful to use, particularly when he realized what he was dealing with and the implications of that phenomenon. And here one more, the thoughtful examination of the facts and its resulting consequences is thus a complement, without which our publication would be of mediocre use. Nevertheless, as our aim is to get to the truth, we will welcome all observations directed to us as much as allowed by the acquired knowledge. We'll try to resolve the doubts and clarify the still obscure points. So this is again about the process. Sorry, I went back. And then he's going to talk about the progress. Therefore, what we witness today is not a modern discovery. It is the awakening of the ancient times clear from the mystic enclosure that generated superstition, ancient times enlightened by civilization and progress in the field of positive things. I thought that this was very good because I think that this is one very important contribution of Spiritism, is really clean the phenomena, clean the practice of the religious aspect and the whole philosophical thing from superstition, from rituals, from a level of mysticism that we still see nowadays in a lot of practices. So I thought that it was important to highlight the progress that Spiritism brings as we understand, for example, that very simple things but powerful things. And it's funny, I'm going to say this because we still see some of these residues in the Spiritist practice nowadays. I'll give you an example. So we know that the mind is everything in Spiritism, and that what we think, we project with our mind. And that is the way that we communicate. Spirits communicate with one another. They don't need verbal language. You know, everything as we think, we affect, we manipulate the universal cosmic fluid. Yet you walk into Spiritist centers and they have boxes where people put names, notebooks where people write names, where by now we would think that with all the knowledge that we have about the power of the mind, you know, we could go without those. Because ultimately, we can all walk into a Spiritist center and write in the universe, write in the cosmic fluid, with our thoughts, the names of all the people that are in our minds. In fact, as we walk in there, we think about them, we are projecting our thoughts, our feelings, our requests, and there is a service on the other side of life who is actually gathering those thoughts and those requests. They're mentally done. So why is it that we still need to write it down anywhere, right? So that is the power of Spiritism. It comes to really, really explain to us the laws and to clean the practice from certain rituals and mysticism and things that we thought they were important. And today we understand that, you know, they are artifacts or they are things that actually help us in our still strong identification with the material to practice, because it's too much for us to trust and to incorporate all the principles. So we still use our canes and crutches with the rituals and some of this material practice to help us to manifest what we could done in a different way. Let me stop here and just see if anyone has any questions or comments at this time. I don't see anyone. Okay, so we can do one more slide here. So I just brought this reference here when Christ stated, "Let those hear who have ears to hear." Spiritism has come to open eyes and ears because it speaks without figures or allegories. So this is a reference that we find in the Gospel, the Consoling Christ, chapter 6, item 4, and that comes to complement exactly the idea that I was kind of developing here with you all. The introduction also talks about this capital consequence, and it's going to say the capital consequence arising from this phenomena is the communication that human beings can establish with the beings of the incorporeal world, and within certain limits, the knowledge which can be acquired regarding their future state. So we did mention that before. We can find that with details, colors, and incredible descriptions of the state of the spirits, different states of the spirits in the book, Heaven and Hell. But that is described in introduction as a capital consequence of the phenomenon. And then it's going to say, in truth, a doctrine does not turn universal, survives thousands of generations, implants from one corner of the planet to the next. It's missing an E over there, among widely diverse peoples from all degree of the social scale, if it's not based on something positive. And so this sentence is basically saying that, you know, Spiritism, the ideas, the concepts have survived throughout times, and not only it has survived, but it has survived, in different cultures, in different parts of the planet, with people in very different experiences, diverse peoples, and again, from very different social scales. So it's not that you have to be rich or have to be poor to embrace this. But this only happened because it was based on something positive. So when he says something positive, what should that be? What is the positive thing that the text is referring to? So further down, it's going to say, searching for the possible relation between those manifestations and all those beliefs, it is to search for the truth. So implying that things will survive time and will be present and will spread and will be seen and heard and experienced in many different places when they are truth. So that is what's positive. And that's why the Spiritism, not Spiritism, the philosophy, but all these ideas, all these universal teachings, have survived and will continue to survive. Here we have the contents that are in the Spiritist review. Kardec is going to put there for us. So what we're going to find, the narration of facts, explanation of the phenomena based on the principles presented by the Spiritists themselves, useful written and verbal communication, explanation for the anomaly of certain characters, sympathies and antipathies, the intuitive knowledge, aptitudes, tendencies, destinies, research on the cause of the phenomena, practical teachings, a result of research regarding the line of conduct, mostly in the agreement with sound morals. So this is what we will be seeing in the Spiritist review. Okay, I'm going to stop here for today. It talks about the inspiration that Kardec received. So it's going to say, in their instructions, the superior spirits always have the objective of awakening men, the love for the good, for the practice of the evangelical precepts. Hence, they shall guide our thoughts that will preside over the writings of this collection. Okay, so homework. Where can we find a reference indicating who guided Kardec in the codification process? And here I have a few tips for you where you can look for the answers. Gospel According to Spiritism, Medium's Book, or in the Spiritist Review. Actually, there are some articles in the Spiritist Review that will address this issue. We will get to this in the next class. We have a few slides. We're gonna start here, Journal of Psychological Studies, on our next class in 2 weeks from now. Again, I just missed the end of the class by 2 slides, but that's not a problem. So we have a few readings to be done. Again, I have here, what is Spiritism? Communication with the Invisible World, items 22 and 33. This will allow you to answer the questions that we had asked previously. Also, the articles of the Spiritist Review from January. So the first 2 articles right after the introduction, which are the different nature of manifestations and the different forms of manifestations, okay? Okay, and then I put here suggested additional reading for reflection, duty in the Gospel According to Spiritism. We had talk about that. So this, the duty reading is for you to do on your own time. If you feel like we're not going to get back to it, I just think it's a really beautiful item, an important item, so you can read that on your own. But what is Spiritism is important to read, and also the different natures of manifestations and forms of manifestations. When you read that, it's not a very easy, but it's how Kardec is going to start. He wants to start explaining to us about the communications, the natures, and he classifies them, also the different forms. It's interesting. Read carefully, make some notes, write your questions. This way we can have a very good exchange in our next class. Okay? At this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Susanna, just a quick question. I'm
Yes.
looking at the book here. The homework. I have a chapter that says different, maybe it's not a chapter, different forms of manifestation. And then the other one says different types of communication. Is that it?
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it
The
says
first
nature. I
two-
thought that there was something else that I was not capturing.
Yeah, I might have to fix that. You're right. It's different forms of manifestation and different types of communication.
Okay.
Okay, so it's the very first two articles right after the introduction, and that's what we are going to be covering in the next class. Any other questions, any comments before we close? No? Okay, so thank you very much to everyone who participated with us. I'm gonna ask Andrea to do just our quick final prayer so we can close together with some thoughts of gratitude.
Sure. Dear Master Jesus and benevolent spirits who look after us and the work that is being conducted in the dissemination of Spiritism, we are so very grateful for the moment that we have had this evening, for being connected with friends that we have developed as strong ties over the years and new ones that we are meeting, thus growing the Spiritist family. We are so grateful for having a place of harmony where we are free to ask questions, where we are encouraged to seek the answers needed so that we may continue on the road of moral progress. Bless each one of us in our homes at this time, as well as our family members and friends, and stay with us always, encouraging us to continue studying